now we move on to Belgium, and we will be listening to the intervention of two speakers. So Kristien Suenens, a name that might not be so known, or actually it is, from the famous Cardinal Suenens. I don't know if they're connected. And then we have Luyten. They are both professors working in the Catholic University of Leuven, and they have this advantage of having access to the heritage of the Jesuits in 3 countries: Belgium, in Luxembourg, and we are here to listen to their experience, and it's a pleasure to have them here with us.
Monsignors, dear brothers and sisters, dear colleagues. Since 2010, the North Belgian, the South Belgian, Luxembourg and Dutch Jesuits relocated their archives to catalogues. Catalogues is the interfaculty documentation and research center on religion, culture and society of the Catholic University of Leuven. Catalogues preserves and discloses an impressive collection of archives on the broad field of religion, culture and society, with a special focus on the heritage collections of male and female religious institutes. The catalogue collection has an important European and even global dimension, documenting interaction between Europe and the Americas, Asia and Africa from the perspective of missionaries, political movements, churches, NGOs and migrant movements. The archives of the Belgian, Luxembourg and Dutch Jesuits became one of the most important archives of our center, in terms of size, but especially in terms of thematical diversity, range and research potential. This was closely related to the history of the Society of Jesus. Suppressed in 1773, the Jesuit order was re-established by the Pope at the beginning of the 19th century. In 1832, a new Belgian Jesuit province was founded. Its members would not only leave a mark on the ecclesiastical and religious life of the country, but also played a prominent role in the intellectual, social, cultural, educational and political area. The former Missio Hollandica in the Netherlands, part of that Belgian provincial structure, became an autonomous province themselves in 1850. In 1935, again, the old Belgian Jesuit province split into 2 parts, establishing a North Belgian Flemish province and a South Belgian Walloon province. This South Belgian province, that also held the archives of the Luxembourg Jesuits, transferred its archives and library files to catalogues in the year 2010, followed by the North Belgian or Flemish Jesuits the year after. Moreover, in 2016, the Dutch Jesuits also transferred their provincial archives to catalogues, making the center the central heritage institution for the Society of Jesus in the Low Countries. The expansion of the Belgian and Dutch Jesuit provinces generated an enormous and diverse archival output. The archives of the Jesuit provinces almost exclusively contain material from the 19th and the 20th centuries. The older Ancien Régime archives are located in the state archives in Belgium. The Jesuit archives at catalogues consist of several major parts. First, the management and organization section, that of the Curia Provincialis, includes files on the constitutions and regulations, as well as the series from the administrative structures of the province. These files deal with the policy of the province and its institutional organization. Other series focus on the internal relations between provincial officials and their houses, residences, colleges and members, and also between the province and the general administration in Rome. Part of this provincial section are also the important and extensive files regarding the unique and long-term formation and training of the Jesuits and their scholastics. Activity reports from provinces and houses give a picture of continuity, but also of evolution within the communities. The archives of local Jesuit residences, Jesuit colleges and Jesuit retreat houses form specific entities within the archives. They document the foundation and the growth of the houses, activities and lives of their residents and officials, the links with the local community, the local ecclesiastical, religious, social and cultural life, and also the material development of the buildings. Closely related to this are the extensive files dealing with the opera or the pastoral works of the Jesuits. The intellectual, scientific activities of the Jesuits are, for instance, illustrated by the files about their publishing activities, for instance, their periodicals, but also by their educational, scientific work at the universities in Belgium and in the Netherlands, for instance, in Antwerp, Namen, Leuven and Nijmegen. The social apostolate is also well represented in the archives. The mission archives of the mission activities of the Belgian and Dutch Jesuits is a final but important field of apostolate. Jesuits from the Low Countries were active on various continents, from the United States to India, Ceylon to Congo, Indonesia and the Middle East. The presence of Belgian Jesuits in Rhodesia, Guatemala, Ethiopia and Japan are also reflected in the files. This is also largely the case for missionary action and propaganda on the home front, which is covered, among other things, in the magazines like Pro Apostolis. The Dutch Jesuits had, since their starting in 1815, important missions in Indonesia and later on in the Middle East, Lebanon and Syria, which resulted in interesting archival material with a wide international range. These mission collections contain, among other things, correspondence with higher officials and local missionaries, as well as diaries of mission posts. The study of a specific work or apostolic domain must always be combined with the consultation of the archives of individual Jesuits. And so the Jesuit provincial archives contain more than 900 archives of individual Jesuits. These files, these archives, differ greatly in importance and size. Sometimes these are only archival germs, other times they are extensive and very valuable collections. In close connection with the archives, Jesuit audiovisual collections and libraries were also transferred to CADOC. The first very extensive heritage category consists of photos and print collections which shed light on all aspects of the order. They include portraits of members and photos and postcards of the houses, residences, colleges and their communities. The training initiatives and the apostolic works are also very well visually documented. For example, the activities in the mission areas and the mission propaganda in Belgium and the Netherlands. The archives are also related to an extensive collection of publications, as well as a collection of annual catalogues, yearbooks of Jesuit provinces from all around the world, from the beginning of the 19th century till the present. Over the past decade, the archives of the Jesuits of the Low Countries has been consulted intensively and from the most diverse angles by various categories of researchers from home and abroad. The archives can be consulted in the archive reading room, in the CADOC reading room in Leuven, and by online request, for instance by scanning on demand. As my colleague Kristien will explain immediately, the inventory is available through our online platform. Consultation is possible after permission is granted by the Jesuits. CADOC implies internationally embargoes for accessibility, depending on the personal or confidential nature of the files. The catalogue also establishes relationships with valuable published heritage collections of Belgian and Dutch Jesuits kept in the Maurits Sabel Library. It's the library of the Faculty of Theology of the Catholic University in Leuven. And in this way, a unique range of Jesuitica sources is preserved and made available at CADOC and at the KU Leuven. For the first time in about 200 years, researchers all over the world can obtain a general view of the North Belgian as well as of the South Belgian, Luxembourg and Dutch Jesuits.
Good morning to you all. I will now say some few words about our valorization initiatives about the Jesuit heritage at CADOC. In the last decade, CADOC has not only focused on the classification and preservation of Jesuit heritage, but also on the valorization of this very valuable heritage, since the Jesuits in the Low Countries were one of the most important male religious institutes with a substantial impact on church and society. Their archives offer ample potential and perspective for research, publication, expositions and valorization initiatives for a wider public. As you can see on the screen, in the past decades we have organized several conferences, for example, on the restoration of the Society of Jesus, and published books about it, and also on their missionary activities. Still, promoting the use of archives of religious institutes also confronted us with some interesting challenges. In my part of the contribution, I will focus on this double perspective, potential and obstacles related to the valorization of Jesuit heritage at CADOC, which can also give a main frame for preservation and valorization of heritage of all religious institutes. Since 2018, CADOC has developed a special online platform to promote Jesuit heritage that is preserved at CADOC, but also in other parts of the university, such as the Library of the Faculty of Theology, which preserves a very valuable collection of Jesuit publications and periodicals. The platform was named IGNIS, Leuven Center for Jesuit Studies, and was developed in collaboration with the Library of the Faculty of Theology and with an interdisciplinary group of researchers of the university experienced in examining and using the Jesuit heritage collection from different perspectives: missionary, colonial, post-colonial history, science history, theology, gender studies, history of education, and pedagogy, and so on. The IGNIS platform has three main objectives. First, it centralizes the different tools and portals that give access to the inventories and catalogues of the heritage collection, archive, audiovisual materials, and libraries. As such, researchers, students, and other people interested in the collection are facilitated to discover the collection and develop, nuance, or prepare their research. Second, the platform wants to guide university students in their search for interesting topics for master thesis by presenting several and interdisciplinary research teams and interesting source packages related to Jesuit history and Jesuit heritage within and outside the Leuven University. Attracting master students is, of course, of main importance to introduce new researchers into the history of the society and to raise the awareness about the large potential of the Jesuit archives. Third, the IGNIS network and platform also encourages the valorization of religious archives by organizing expositions, lectures, conferences, and meetings about the relevance and the potential of the Jesuit heritage collection. As you can see, in a few weeks, we, for example, have a lecture by Dr. Festo Mkenda, the director of the RC archive here in Rome. In the past, in 2019, for example, we also organized a conference for teachers, principals, and pedagogical advisors of the Flemish Jesuit colleges to discover the archives of their colleges and the Jesuits. During different brainstorm sessions, ideas were developed to use the heritage collection in day-to-day school practice for developing pedagogical plans and for creating a lasting Ignatian identity for the colleges. Another conference focused on the potential of the Jesuit archives for the Benelux and for the research on missionary history. During the classification of Jesuit archives and the development of the IGNIS platform, CADOC had frequent contacts with the Jesuits themselves. The value of this permanent cooperation and cross-fertilization with the Society of Jesus cannot be underestimated. It is important for the members of the Society to keep in touch with their heritage, to share with us crucial information about their history, and to give input in discussion about the valorization of their archives. The Jesuits retain full control on the accessibility of their archives. Permission of a Jesuit representative is required for each request for consultation. Despite this fruitful cooperation, promoting religious heritage is not self-evident in an academic community of students, researchers, and academics with little and with fading affinity and knowledge about the religious institutes. This is not only the case with regard to the Jesuit heritage that we preserve, but also with regard to the archives of about 100 other religious institutes that are preserved in our center. It is a challenge to build bridges between this a-religious academic community and the heritage of the Jesuits. A similar problem poses itself when developing projects for Jesuit colleges. Translating the Ignatian pedagogical project and Jesuit history to contemporary school floor is difficult because many teachers, pupils, and parents have little or no knowledge of the Jesuit history. Moreover, many school teams are overburdened with the day-to-day school practice and have little time, space, and energy to develop special programs around Ignatian identity. Exploring new trajectories to foster both academic and broader interests in religious archives would be an interesting point for debate for this conference. International cooperation between institutes, centers, and depositories of Jesuit archives and heritage is very important to develop new insights and good practices on the domain of heritage preservation and valorization. CADOC has regular meetings with Jesuit archive centers in the neighboring countries, but would like to intensify this relationship in the future, hoping to develop international projects about Jesuit history and to create a large platform for valorization of this valuable heritage in Europe and abroad. Thank you very much.
Grazie.